Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's great that you came because the occasion is worth it, I think, and I'm very happy that after a couple of years when we were discussing with Ada and Alexandru Solomon, we managed to have them in Ji.hlava both. Alexandru was here many times, Ada for the first time. A brief introduction, if it's needed. Ada Solomon is a producer from Romania, acclaimed producer. I just heard today that you produced 55 films, out of which 30 feature films. Quite amazing. Many of the films you may know, they received prizes at many occasions. I would mention recently Toni Erdmann, Child's Pose, Aferim. Alexandru Solomon is a filmmaker as well, and DOP, if I may say, and documentarian. His films were screened also in Ji.hlava. Recently, your recent film Tarzan's Testicles was premiered at Karlovy Vary this year. You also made Kapitalism, Our Secret Recipe. And this masterclass will have no moderator, or it will have two moderators, because you will moderate somehow each other, or Alek will moderate Ada. This gives this masterclass another dimension, because you also work together and you also live together. Maybe there will be a space to discuss this collaboration as well. So we are really privileged and happy to have you here. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And now I would give the floor to Aleku, who will take role of the moderator of this, okay? So welcome again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, René, also for what you did in Bucharest during the 5 years you were there, supporting documentary film there. And I think I discovered this morning we had a talk together with the emerging producers here, and I suddenly discovered that being a documentarian is in fact being a sort of moderator, because you have to listen, and it's nice, and you just put questions from time to time, and that's my profession anyway. But I think today the theme of this talk is documentary and fiction film, and we can start from the idea that was expressed in the last 10-15 years since the so-called new Romanian wave started and imposed itself internationally, and I think this new Romanian wave has a lot of documentary in it. In the fiction films made by people that belong, let's say, to this wave, directors of fiction films, there's a lot of documentary in their approach. And I would try and start a reflection from this and ask Ada what kind of films she likes to make and why, and if this has a relationship to documentary in a way when she makes fiction films.
Well, what I like to see is what I like to make, first of all. And what I like to see is, I'm a curious person. I like to see things about the world I live in. I want to have the possibility to widen my perspective. And that's also what I'm doing. And in this respect, I want to see things that are real, that are connected to the real life, and I think that at the end of the day, the things that are touching us the most, and the things that are giving us the power to move forward, are the real things. Even our dreams are stemming from reality and from what we experience, and that's what I'm trying to do in the films. And I was thinking recently what kind of films I like to see, and which are the films that touched me the most in the last couple of years. And I have to say that somehow lately even though I'm producing more fiction than documentaries, the films that are touching me most are the documentaries. And I don't know if it's out of empathy, it's out of my nature, it's out of I don't know what, but I think that the personal touch at the end of the day, it's what is the most expressive and most powerful for me in a and actually not only in films but in any cultural product that I'm in relation with. I make films that I want to raise questions. I make films that are giving less answers, but leave the viewers to question the situation, the environment, but most of them themselves. And I'm questioning myself with each and every project that I'm getting involved in. And that's my my way of growing up and feeding myself. Basically that's what I do.
We wrote down yesterday in the plane, or where were we? In the airport. A few films that she made and that have a documentary connection or dimension. And we mentioned The Happiest Girl in the World, which is a film by Radu Jude, and which stems somehow from Radu's experience in advertising. Mm-hmm. And maybe you want to say more about that?
Yeah, The Happiest Girl in the World, it's the story of teenager that receives a prize in an advertising campaign. She's winning a Dacia, a car, the symbolic Romanian car, out of a campaign. And she is called to do a testimonial on this. So she's face to face to an advertising team and the shooting place, and it's all the fake glamour and her own problems and her relation with the family. So it's a very personal insight in the situation of this girl, but in the same time it's an overview of the world of advertising, where Radu grew up as a director, making a living out of advertising, and it is completely fiction. Of course, it's staged. It's with actors and people that were picked for the roles. But in the same time, it's very, very realistic. It's set up in actually it's shot completely in open air, almost completely in open air in a central square in Bucharest. And we were interfering with people passing by and asking, "Oh, what's going on here? Oh, and what is this? And what is that?" But even if it was scripted and there are lines, everything that is going on, it's so close to the reality and to the experience that Radu, as part of the advertising, as a mediator, actually, once again, in between the advertising, the commercial part of it, the artistic representation of this event, and the personal relation with a girl, because he had this experience personally by doing this kind of advertising and getting to know this the girl, the original girl. So everything was a melt. It was in between reality and fiction. It was staged, but in the same time, all the reality of our everyday life in Bucharest, in the center of Bucharest, was present in the film, and it makes the film much more powerful than if it would have been taking place, for instance, on a stage and have this kind of shooting just on a stage in a studio, closed from. Isolated from the real world. So that was one of my first encounters, so to say, with with having this kind of realism, documenting the everyday life, but with a higher significance, and making fiction much more rooted into personal experiences and documentary at the end of the day.
And the girl is also, she's not an actress, she's non-professional.
She wasn't an actress at that time. It was her very first experience in front of a camera. And yeah, the film was talking about this kind of abuse that the advertising is doing towards a human being, and how it's transforming something into a fake glamour and fake happiness, which was not at all there. But in the same time, somehow the fact, what was happening with our actress, with our the one that was playing the character, was again in between this kind of abuse. And I'm questioning sometimes of to which extent we are allowed to transform a personality and to turn this and to present it in a different light. And here, of course, it's not this kind of film where that can leave traces on the personality of someone, but in the same time, I'm very cautious to the limits where we are pushing art. I mean, what we are doing in the name of art, what kind of sacrifice or of abuse at the end of the day we are allowed to do in the name of an artistic act. And I think that the limits are, in my perspective, they are really to put this kind of border.
And somehow you're lucky when you do fiction, because in documentary these ethical aspects are much more, let's say, strong and debatable, and because you invade the personal life of somebody else, and the abuse, let's say, could be considered an abuse. You take his image and you
and
project
the
intimacy,
but then it's so debatable, because the moment that they agreed to be in front of the camera, it's already a kind of mutual agreement.
And my theory is that every character wants to also use you and the film for his own purposes. It goes both ways. It's not, which in the case of fiction, it's not like this, because an actor wouldn't express, let's say, this kind of, wouldn't try to manipulate the film in the same way as a protagonist in a documentary does.
Well, yes and no. And this is true also for the head of departments and the actors, because of course they are trying to express themselves and put them in the best light and push the things towards what they think and what they feel. But for me, this is also part of the joy of making films and this kind of being together. I'm a person that can't live alone. I'm afraid of loneliness. I can't be only with myself. Maybe I'm not enough self-confident, and that's why I need people around to rely on and to put the basis of my verticality. So the joy of working in film is that you are a team, and you put your visions and your strengths together, and you are able to create something and to deliver something that it's a common vision and it's a common statement. And I need this. I'm so very lucky to work in this field that fits me so well.
Yeah, it's strange, because why I ran away from fiction, I was doing photography, cinematography for fiction films, and I ran away because there was such a crowd. But anyway, this brings us to, let's say, the theme of the family, because in The Happiest Girl in the World, this girl is brought to the advertising scene by her parents. Then you did another film with Radu Jude, Everybody in Our Family, which is a story about a couple who goes crazy and the kid is in the middle. And then the kid was much younger, so it was, I assume, more difficult to work and to protect her.
In Everybody in Our Family, the process of casting was something very, very interesting, because we were casting a girl of 6 years old. It was a film about the conflict in between the parents, divorced parents, and who has the right to take the girl, and who is more powerful towards the girl. And so while Radu was casting the kid, I was casting the parents, because it was so damn important that the parents understand precisely what we are doing. And again, with my fear that we are not abusing or we are not doing anything wrong in the mind of the kid that is playing this important role. I think the film, it's a very, very important statement, and I will come back to what it means for me, Everybody in Our Family. But I was so afraid not to do anything wrong in the mind and the perception of the word of the kids. So that's why we needed to have parents that are steady, that they are next to us, and that they understand very well and help the kid get into the story without leaving out of it with a trauma. And why I'm saying this, so it was very important that we have a very powerful family, very connected, very loving, and to have this kind of not affecting the kid with problems of a separated couple and this game of power. Why I say that that Everybody in Our Family, it's a very important film for me. It's that even if it's speaking about a particular family in Romania at a certain point, the film, it's a very, very nice metaphor about conflict of any kind, of any size, of any type. And at the end of the day, in this film, as in every conflict, the subject of the conflict stays the victim. It doesn't matter who is winning, because the parties are so focused on being right that at a certain point they absolutely forget the subject, and the subject doesn't matter who wins, it's the one that is losing, and it's the one that is the most effective. And this is available. It's the same thing for big wars as for family, couple problems, or I don't know, community where the authorities are fighting and the community is suffering, and so on and so forth. So it's and here was the moment when I understood that what we are doing with art and with the cultural products is in fact to explore a microcosm that is giving the picture of we are exploring the cells like a biologist, like a researcher, in order to see how is the body and to understand how the body is functioning. But we cannot have the full picture if we don't get into this kind of cell research and the relations in between the cells.
Okay, so then this was a story about a couple. Then you did Child's Pose, which is a story about couple and mother and child and parents. We won't get into that. There's no time. But then you did another film with Radu Jude, which is called Aferim, which superficially is a period film It's based in 1835 in Romania, but it is the story of a father and a kid, his kid, and the growing up thing. And maybe the best thing would be to show the trailer now, and then we can talk about it.
Arză-l făcut dascăl, cum mă necăjește, umblă să mă învețe, grecul păsărește. Arză-l făcut dascăl, cum mă necăjește, umblă să mă învețe, grecul păsărește. Tip-to-tip, 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 tip-to-tip.
Dă-mi-un însuflețit este un neînsuflețit și dă-mi-un neînsuflețit un însuflețit.
Ah, ce foc pe mine, of ce supărare, să strig toată ziua, tot în gura mare. Ah, ce foc pe mine, of ce supărare, să strig toată ziua, tot în gura mare. Tip-to-tip, 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 tip-to-tip.
Mai puțin se vor certa muiere decât bărbații pentru greșalele ce vor face, de vreme ce muiere este mai proastă și mai lesne spre cădere în păcat.
Arde-l făcut dascăl, cum mă necăjește, umblă să mă învețe, grecul păsărește. Ah, ce bucurie, chep când ți-arăt mie, îl văd pe câmpie, mi se arată mie. Căprioare, fugătoare, pepeliță zburătoare, pe păsărele cântătoare, ce mă chem la vânătoare.
Apparently, it's a historical piece, and what it says it's not so historical is the impact it had in Romania. And maybe you can explain a bit the, let's say, the research process for the film and the documentary approach of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the film, it's coming to age at the end of the day, and how the values are transmitted from one generation to another through the setup of the situation of the society in the like almost 200 years ago, but very actual, in fact. It was talking about the gypsy slavery and the prejudices that we had in the society 200 years ago, but they are so damn present, and it's a very, very actual film. And one can say, well, but this is a period piece. What's the link with the documentary, and what is documentary into this piece? Actually, the whole script was built like a puzzle with writings and really literally dialogues taken from writings from the period, memories, letters, stuff like that. And in this respect, Radu Jude and Florin Lazarescu, the two script writers, they really explored for more than 1.5 years everything that they possibly, together with a historical consultant, an expert in the period, Constanța Vintilă Ghițulescu. They really explored and read and took pieces like in a really documentary archive film, putting them together and building the script out of these pieces that they took out of the archive materials of the writings from the period. So this was the first step, and the main documentary element in this film, which is quite original in terms of not having images, archive images, but archive writings put together in a fiction construction. Then the other element was that the reason for which primarily we choose black and white was to make clear that this is a fictional construction. It's not a reconstruction of history, and we are not pretending that this is the reality of the time, but it is storytelling. It is a story that we bring like with our own input into it. In the same time, even this, it was built like a story and telling the story. The authenticity element was something that we were very, very concerned about. And every single element, we had endless discussion about how these travelers were eating. Were they using forks? How do they cut the meat? How did they eat? What kind of, they were using plates. They had, like we had today, a picnic set with them or not, because we don't have many testimonies on that. It's like 200 years ago, and for this lower class people, we didn't know much, but we tried to have in the film only elements where we had a proof out of authenticity. The props, we were rebuilding them. Everything that was wooden was made from scratch, and all kind of little thing. We tried not to use any kind of plastic fabric into the costumes. Just again to have natural and textures that were valid for the period. In terms of cutting and the shape of costumes that we made, we went into researching the history of Romanian costumes, and we got to a specialist that had only the, I don't know what's the name of this tipare. Yeah, like models of how they cut and how they wear the sewing, how it was the sewing without using a machine, of course, like nowadays, and almost everything was done by hand for the costumes of the, which was a little bit insane, but we were really like, no, we want to have this as authentic as possible. And the second reason for using black and white, it was that the colors of the period are not the colors, whatever we do in terms of aging, there is a difference in the way the colors were in the period. So we preferred not to have the colors in the film because they won't be authentic. So even though it was a statement that this is a story, and it's not reality, and it's not a fidel picture of reality, we want it to be as realistic as possible.
And the animals?
And the animals. And here with the animals we had, oh my God, yeah, that was another thing. Besides the fact that the guy that was in charge with the animals was growing flies in his apartment, really literally growing flies in some boxes, because Radu wanted to have this presence of flies into the mansion that is in the film. So besides this, while researching, we find out that the cows in Romania 200 years ago, they were quite different than the cows we have nowadays, with a different horns and different body shape, different color. They were this kind of white, with more like the Indian cows, if you have a figure of how it is.
Pre-industrial cows.
Pre-industrial cows, and we tried to find this kind of cows and also some specific pigs, but we will get there as well. And they are not living in Romania anymore. There are some in Hungary. But to get the permit and to get passports for these cows, to bring them to the shooting, was something that was taking far too long. So we renounced, and we have very, very few cows in the film, but we have a lot oxes and
Goats. Buffaloes. Or
buffaloes that are more ancient and more are closer to the thing, to the period kind of animals. And this was also very, very difficult. Then with the pigs, apparently they weren't this kind of pink pigs that are common nowadays. They were the brown and black pigs with more hairy. So we had to provide this as well.
Yeah, let's not get so specialist into the animal
No.
issue. I think what has to be said is that the film Aferim is such a statement in the Romanian landscape of cinema and culture, because Romanian period films, Romanian historical films were used a lot during the national communist regime as a tool, of course, of propaganda and nation building and mythology building. And they were, of course, very glorious, all of them, and the relationship with the documentary approach was very vague. They were full of, lies, and that's another theme. But so Radu's film, Aferim, is, and your film, is such a statement in this landscape also, apart from the Roma discussion, which today is very hot in Romania, and discrimination against Roma and the Holocaust against Roma, which I assume also in these parts it's not totally unknown. And then, of course, this is also a sort of a genre film in the sense that it's a Western. It could be seen as a Western, and the locations I think were very important, and maybe you can tell us about.
And this was the other thing that we want to have realistic sets, and there is, even if it is a period film, it's a very atypical period film having no close-ups. And this is very difficult. I mean, if you think about and you look now pointed on this, you will see that most of the period films have limited perspectives, really just to cover only the set that is prepared for the shooting. In our case, we were not shooting in a studio ever. We were shooting only in real locations, and the trigger, the challenge was to have as close as 360 degrees freedom of shooting. So we had to go into parts of nature that it's not touched, where we were able to build, that we were able to provide our own sets, and our own construction, to be accessible with a film crew, but in the same time to be nature untouched. And this was pretty difficult, but we succeeded. And once again, I discovered what a beautiful country we have, and how much of untouched nature is around. But it was a challenge, and our location manager actually, for the scouting, did over 7,000 kilometers in order to find the right locations, the right spots where we can build our sets and be part of the film.
Again, I encourage you to interact if you have questions, curiosities, or yes.
I would like to ask you how close you work with director, or is it more like director which you like, or his work, he comes with the project, or you have idea of the project and you pick the director, and then how much you interfere in the process? Interfere, in the good way, maybe.
Yeah. I'm kind of a typical creative producer. I consider myself a creative producer, But my creativity lays in sustaining the vision of the filmmaker more than generating ideas for projects. If I think that if I would like to create things, I would be a filmmaker myself, a filmmaker in the sense of author, which I'm not, and I don't have this desire. I think that it's much more profitable on an intellectual level for me to work with someone that has an idea, a vision, and I am sustaining it. So my creative means are to find ways to sustain and to surround the filmmaker with people or elements that can push his vision and his ideas to be better seen or better achieved. I'm saying also that I'm not picking stories, I'm picking storytellers. And this is because I think that every story can be fantastic or banal, depending on who's telling it. The same thing can be something that you don't care at all if there is not there the strength and the capacity of telling it in a way. So that's the way I work. I'm picking people, not subjects, not stories. And I'm picking the people out of, I was telling actually even yesterday at a certain point, I think, that I'm picking motivations. I'm not picking stories or subjects. I'm picking motivations in the sense that I need to have something in common and something that is interesting me and visions and questions that are of my interest and I think that can be of interest for an audience. I'm the very first audience for the projects that I'm get involved, and if something is so interesting that I want to see it on a big screen, then I'm going with it. Otherwise, it's not even a matter of money. It's a matter of my lifetime, the energy that you put in, the energy of the people that are making a film team. I'm calling it on purpose team and not crew, because I think it's much more than a crew. It's a collective. It's a creative exchange. It's not a crew. It's not workers. It's not just technicians. It's much more than this. It's exchanges of ideas and of perspectives that are melting there and then are transmitted. So I'm not interfering in the creative process otherwise than wanting to understand what's in there. Sometimes I'm pointing that here I'm not engaging myself. Here I don't understand. I simply don't understand. And then this makes the filmmaker or the filmmakers give me the arguments or not finding the arguments, and then indeed it was a weakness and we built together the new thing. I'm very involved in the research period, and this is something that I like a lot, to discover new things and to get into unexplored roads. I'm very involved in the casting, and here I have long discussions. I'm not imposing. I'm never imposing. I don't believe in this. But we discuss, and I need arguments for one or another thing, and I'm proposing. I'm proposing a lot.
Before contradicting you, because I have to do this as a moderator and a husband, and I must say that she has a real talent in making people putting people together and picking the right collaborator. And this is I always rely on her for if I lack somebody in the team and who would work with whom and why, and for a set designer or for a cameraman, and this is a great talent. But now I have to contradict you, because it's not only about, you asked if she proposes a story or she picks it up, and I think I've been hearing you a lot saying, "Oh, I'd like to do a film about this story because I think it's so important," and then she never gives up. In the end, she finds the right person to make it, or somehow by chance there's a director who comes and wants to make a film on that. And I think this brings us to Toni Erdmann and that story.
Yeah, but this...
She kept telling, wow, it would be great to make a film about expats, rich expats in Romania, or wherever, about this displacement of people, you know, who live in a bubble in a foreign country, and what is in there, and you know, what is this sort of exile. And she kept trying to convince me or somebody else to do a film about this, and then
all of a sudden, Maren Ade is coming to us, following an old friendship that I had with one of the main producers of the film, Jonas Dornbach. We got to know each other during EAVE. We've been in the same year in EAVE. EAVE, it's a workshop and set up for producers networking. The best master in film producing I ever had in my life. And so they are coming to Romania with Maren, and Maren is pitching me her idea of her new film that was precisely on the moment that I was trying to convince the Romanian directors to develop something on this story of expats, of the luxury nomads of nowadays, and she's coming with this story, and I was really like shocked when I heard, but Maren, you are talking about the film that I want to make, and there is no way that you do this film elsewhere or with somebody else. I want to be part of this film no matter what. And then I was starting really, indeed, to feed her with my observation and my perspective on this matter and stories, and at the end of the day, documentation for her story. She had her own research on this, and I think what makes Toni Erdmann such a great film is precisely the very, very profound research and documentation of the film. She did her homework, and she wrote the script basically like a documentarist, not like a fiction script writer.
Meaning
that everything was rooted in real stories. In speaking with people that are working, expats, foreigners that are working in Romania, that worked in Romania, that had expertise in this kind of stuff, Romanians that are working with this kind of high-level technicians that are coming from abroad, their relations, staying inside these institutions, reading a lot of the economical dynamics and transformations, trying to put all these things together with her personal story and her personal relation with her father. That was, of course, the red line in the story in between Ines and Winfried. And that was it on one hand. And then in terms of writing the dialogues, actually the dialogues were written by doing the casting and the rehearsals of the film. So she had the structure of the film, And then during extensive, but really extensive casting, only in Romania, I think she's been working for something like 8 months, bringing her lead actors to do casting casting sessions with the shortlisted Romanian actors in order to shape the dialogues and to pick the best actor for a real character that she had in mind when she constructed the scene. So everything was somehow real and then, reenacted, I would say.
I feel a bit like a lousy moderator because people are leaving. Maybe there were other expectations for what you want to hear, so please intervene if there's other directions you want to listen to. But before you do this, maybe we show the trailer of Toni Erdmann so that we don't speak about something that maybe you haven't seen.
Hallo Papa.
Hallo, wie geht's?
Ja, sehr gut eigentlich.
Sie telefoniert nur.
Ich bin gleich fertig mit euch.
Ich habe jetzt jemanden engagiert als Ersatztochter.
Naja, das ist ja gut. Dann ruft sie dich auch zum Geburtstag an und so. Dann mache ich mir da keinen Stress mehr.
Das ist schon Wahnsinn, mit welchen Schwergewichten sie da im Ring steht.
Sie sind zu Besuch? Ja, spontane Entscheidung. Ich habe mir einen Monat freigenommen. Das war jetzt aber echte Angst. I'm Toni. Toni Erdmann. Nice to meet you. I'm consultant and coach.
Also das wird jetzt bestimmt die Feministin in dir ärgern, aber...
Ich bin doch keine Feministin. Dann würde ich es mit Typen wie dir gar nicht aushalten, Gerald.
I have to arrest you.
Sorry, Bogdan, my father made a stupid joke. Willst du mich fertig machen, oder was?
Wenn es um Ihren Vater geht, dann bin ich nicht der Richtige.
Die doch alle!
Bist du eigentlich ein bisschen glücklich hier?
Schwören jetzt ganz schön viele Begriffe rum hier, ne? Spaß, Glück, Leben. Was findest denn du lebenswert?
Ja, da muss man das noch machen und dies und dann und währenddem geht das Leben einfach vorbei. Ja, von den Eltern kann man ja wirklich viel lernen, muss man sagen. Ja.
But maybe we tell the story a bit for those who haven't seen the film about this lady who works as an expat in a corporation in Romania in the oil fields, and her father, from whom she has been estranged for a while, comes unexpectedly in her life and, doesn't go away anymore, practically.
Yeah, and trying to bring her into her senses and into her sensibility that is completely lost somehow. Here I would elaborate a little bit more, as the film it's shot like more than almost 85% in Romania and in Bucharest. And speaking again about the relation between the filmmaker and the producer. Here, she had her extensive research for the story and for the structure and so. But when you are a foreigner and you come to a country, you see the surface, and in a city you see the surface, most likely the touristic part of it, and so. In this case, again, the locations were a key element. And the kind of Bucharest that she wanted to have in the film wasn't the Bucharest that you usually see in Romanian films. So her knowledge of Romanian cinema didn't help much. And she was really relying on me to propose what is accurate, what is this word of Bucharest. And I was so very happy to propose locations, well, for this expat milieu, but also of hidden Bucharest, of Bucharest that I deeply love. It's my city. I was born there, I grew there, and I think I'm more a Bucharestinian than a Romanian. That's my nationality. And to bring this flavor of the city into the film. And most of the Romanians were saying, wow, but this is the face of Bucharest that we haven't seen on big screen. And that's again about how we work together and what it means reality and what it means documentary into cinema. And speaking again about documentary into fiction, we were shooting a scene at a certain point in an apartment building, and it was a break to change a little bit the light or something, and Maren went in the balcony and has seen a scene with a family, with a very poor family, from the balcony in a court, in a backyard, in a building next to our place of shooting, and she immediately wanted to integrate that. So we were shooting that people, and they integrated it into the scene as a completely different, as an opposite kind of looking into the family relation, because they were poor, but they were happy, they were together, they were. It was a contrast to our characters and their story in the film. So just out of the sudden, precisely like in a documentary, where there is something that appears on your way and you integrate it in the film.
But does this approach make your life as a producer more difficult? Does it make it more awfully expensive or less expensive, or how does it?
It makes it more exciting. That's for sure.
Okay.
How
many days of shooting then for Toni Erdmann?
For Toni Erdmann, it wasn't easy. That was a long shoot. It was 56 days in the end, out of which almost 50 in Romania.
And how did it go?
Yeah, well.
Why so long?
Why so long? Because this was possible, and this is another interesting story for me, and being a producer and working on more projects at the same time, because we were shooting Aferim in the same time with Toni Erdmann. So I was migrating from one set to another, from 200 years ago to the very actual 21st century. And it was really a big difference also in terms of production and the way Radu Jude is working and the way Maren Ade is working. Because Maren is covering herself and trying every single possible shot for a scene until she is exhausted and she doesn't have any more ideas of trying it, with like 30 takes for the same scene and so on and so forth. While Radu, it's a speedy director that has the film very clearly cut in his head. He is making jokes about himself and saying, I don't have many ideas, that's why I'm moving so fast. This is not true. He's very, very precise and practical, and he's used with very limited means. So he's taking advantage, and he's doing like 2-3 takes, long shots, and end of story. So for Aferim, we had 23 days of shooting, while for Toni Erdmann was the double. On the other hand, we were shooting on film stock, so again, we were much more limited than the digital on Toni Erdmann. And it was complicated because, yeah, well, with Maren, she's very demanding in the same time, and she's going into every single detail, and she wants one more for every single detail, and this is exhausting. But she's burning. She's like a flame when she's on set. This makes then the editing very complicated because she had, like, I don't remember now precisely, but about 80 hours of material to pick the film, and only to pick the right takes, it took almost 1 year. Yeah.
What was the budget of Toni Erdmann?
Yeah, so speaking about budgets, this comes the other big difference in between the two films, because Aferim was 1.5 millions and Toni Erdmann was almost 4 millions. So euros. So yeah, this is also kind of a difference in between even the approach and the way we worked on the films.
If I can get back to the subject you were just talking about, sort of content-wise documentary versus fiction, because when seeing Toni Erdmann, it's just still such a. I'm still trying to figure out what it was I saw the first time I saw it, and such an incredible film, and the same with your new film Soldiers, which is also really working on the border of the two, documentary and fiction. So can you talk a little bit about the balance of, if you can say, like, the amount of documentary in fiction? Like, how do you actually, are you aware of, you're working within the fiction format, but are you aware not to take it too much in a documentary direction? Does it make sense if you think about Toni Erdmann and the new film Soldiers, which is also shot on location and based on a true story and a book? And does my question make any sense? Can documentary take over the fiction narrative? Is that a danger in your view?
I don't see this as a danger at all, and no, on the contrary. You know what? For me, there is no border. And I think actually today there are less and less borders. And you cannot say for something that it's precisely only this or that, and it doesn't make a difference. For me, a good film, it's a good film. End of story. This is film.
You as a producer, you obviously also has to think about the audience later on and being able to sell it. So, I mean, I'm saying this only as a compliment because I really think you, with both films, managed to tell incredible fiction narratives also, balancing it incredibly with the elements of documentary means and ways.
Yeah, there's something in your question that reminded me that there is something about it. And one of the dangers is the resistance of film crew, who is a fiction film crew, to the documentary approach. Because fiction film crews are like armies, and they have to deliver. Because the costs and whatever, the schedule, you cannot go over. You cannot stop in the middle of a day and say, okay, I'm gonna film, I've just seen something there across the street and I need this in the film, and this totally breaks the discipline. And I think you had that on the Soldiers, and I heard from the back of you, but from the team that they were somehow exasperated that, that Ivana Mladenovic was working a bit like this, improvising, seeing things, and including in the film, in the fiction, drama, documentary elements. And I think this is not a danger, but
it is a challenge. It is a challenge, and it's sometimes complicated, but it's so damn rewarding when you have the chance to have an unexpected event that it's occurring, and you shoot, you by chance are with a camera over there. Yeah, you break the routine. You might need to finish your staged scene in another day of shooting, but you have something that it's authentic and that gives flavor. And you know, it's like adding a spice to a meal that it's absolutely balancing to a dish that it's absolutely balancing it, and it gives also originality and yeah, it makes it different. Because when we speak about fiction per se, and it's constructed in a dramatic scheme, it's one thing. But when you can add these elements that are breaking the rules, you might succeed to get something as original and striking that it's more powerful than the classical construction. Then there is another element that I find it very, very powerful and interesting, that is making for me the difference in between documentary and fiction. For a documentary, the script is written in the editing room, as opposed to the script written before the shooting in fiction. When in fiction you can arrive in the editing room to rewrite the script, I think it's a big achievement. It is costly, it is energy consuming, it is risky, but I think it's worth every minute. At this point, I would say that we better see also, because we got into the Soldiers story, we better see the trailer of Soldiers to understand a little bit about what kind of cinema we are talking.
Doctorat în manele?
Da.
Ți-ai luat vreo șpagă ceva de la dânsul de la adus aici?
Mă iubești? Ăsta e direct șmecherit, e periculos, a trăit în pușcărie. Încearcă să scapi de el, serios.
Pula mea, dar stătea lăsa femeia, frate. O femeie nu ține numai cu pula. Trebuie să zici și vorbe frumoase. Viața mea, dragostea mea, inima mea.
Dar nu le-i plec să-mi bag. Nu bag mai mult de 100 de lei.
Ce ești, mă, așa chitrus? Te uiți la 100 de lei, banii te fac pe tine sau tu îi faci pe ei?
Maybe we should tell that Soldiers is based on a book written by Adrian Șchiop. Adrian Șchiop is an anthropologist and writer, and he moved to this ghetto in Bucharest called Ferentari, which is very much Roma, very much drugs, and a lot of people coming from prisons and so on. He went there to write an anthropology thesis on manele. Manele is this musical species that is very, very popular in Romania and mainly in these milieus. Now it's becoming cool also among hipsters and intellectuals and so on. But he moved there to write this thesis. He rented an apartment in Ferentari. So the book is based on his experience, and he is playing the main lead in the film. And the actor, his partner, Digudai, is not an actor, non-professional. So, yeah, twice-fold, in a way, documentary.
Yeah, the story of Adrian Schiop as being the writer of the book, the one that experienced the story, then a writer of a fictionalized diary of his experience over there, then being the co-writer and having Ivana's vision on reshaping of the experience, and then playing the character that was created by Ivana and seen by Ivana out of himself and the character in the book and so on and so forth. This was quite a psychological journey, I would say, and not to this day I'm able to understand precisely what's his relation with what happened to him and to the character, and how much of himself it's in there and what it is. But speaking about a documentary, so it is a document. It's a true fact played by non-professionals, so it is staged and it isn't staged, because the personal emotions and the whole relation and involvement can't be erased. Then having Digudai, that it's more of a documentary character than a real actor, because he was playing a character, but he was putting a lot of himself and his nature into the film, and this makes him even more charismatic than the character itself. But in the same time, everything, all the lines are scripted. It's very, very little improvisation. The improvisation is coming out of the scenes that Ivana was observing in on the real shooting places, and she added in the story and in the edit. The edit is very unconventional. So this is really like a hybrid film that was scripted, but in the same time was treated as a documentary at the end of the day. And I think it's out of the films that I was involved in, it's the most evocative for this relation in between documentary in fiction, because of all these elements and little stories, little vignettes of the neighborhood lifestyle and atmosphere put into the regular story of the film.
I mean, usually fiction runs away from hazard and accidents because it spoils the production. And in this case, the director was wishing for accidents and unexpected stuff. But maybe you come back to the casting process and to the fact that Adrian, the writer, is playing his own part in an autobiographical novel that he wrote a few years ago. How did you get there?
Well, we got there apparently because we didn't find the right actor. We went through the regular process of casting, trying to cast all the Romanian actors that were fitting the profile of the character. But we were facing a lot of prejudices in this respect, because it was not only the first gay Romanian film, and the Romanian actors were in a difficult position. Well, you know what? I was watching even the shortlisted actors at the casting, and it wasn't the sparkle there. It wasn't something in their eyes. They were unable to play it. They were really unable to play it. And so on one side, it was to play a relation with a man. That was the first prejudice to overcome. And the second one, this man wasn't just a man, it was a gypsy. And here comes the second pushback.
Gypsy coming from prison himself with all the ingredients that come with that.
Yeah, an ex-convict himself with scars on his hand, with a definite language from the neighborhood. An adorable person. I mean, really, he is so damn charismatic. This big bear that has a kind of tenderness in the same time, but also it gives fear out of his full strength and presence. It's a very, very interesting character. But no one was able really to play or to express this relation. So I was telling to Ivana, well, I'm sorry that they are good actors, but there is something missing. I don't believe them. I really don't believe them. She was like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm showing, and I don't know what to do. And I said, I would like to try with Adi. And I said, go ahead and try it. We will see. What do we have to lose? And she did it, and it was already there. The chemistry was there. It was completely. Maybe he's not the best actor in the world, Adi, but it's credible, and you feel and you attach to it, to him. Sorry, to the relation, and you believe it. So that's actually what made it possible, and I think it's the best choice. And to be honest, of course, Ivana had all the time the picture, the image of Adi, of the writer, in her mind when she was searching for the perfect actor to impersonate him. And sometimes you cannot find a better impersonator than the person itself.
Yeah, and I think his sort of a bit of rigidity and not being really at ease in acting himself and his story plays a role, a good role in the way it is. But what did I want? I wanted to say also that you had another casting for a gypsy role, Roma part, with Ștefan Constantinescu, I guess. And he was saying, because he tried to work with gypsy actors, and you see how it is in this world. The Roma actors had a difficulty in playing the part of a Roma guy because of all this pressure in the Romanian society and discrimination and, looking down at them, that they wouldn't assume this. They would never, they were never in the position to be, okay, I'm a Roma, so what? They were rather trying to avoid it or, lose themselves in the landscape, in the white landscape. So this is also very peculiar, As you don't find a gay actor willing to go for it, I don't think you could find a Roma actor doing it. So yeah, maybe it's this also.
Yeah, it has to be with prejudices, and they want. On one hand, there are some that they are assuming their identity, but in the same time, they want to be part of the majority. And actually, well, Soldiers, it's about this as well, about this crash in between two words. and without saying that one is better than the other. And this makes the film even, once again, more of a documentary and an observational documentary, because it's not pushing the thing, it's not following and giving a final answer to this. It's just observing the impossibility of this relation and the impossibility of these two words to melt or to really go hand in hand.
I mean, we're talking of yeah.
Yes. Yes. I have a question. Have you ever stepped back from a project that you were already involved in? And if yes, what were the reasons?
No, not yet. Not yet. And I know what I am saying. I was saying earlier as well, it took me quite some time to learn to say no. It's something that I got from my education in the communism, when it was not nice and basically not allowed to say no. It was really like, no, it's not a word. It's maybe, it's let's find a way, but not no. So for quite a long time, I was unable really to articulate no. And one of the biggest achievements that I have at this point, in front, when I'm looking into the mirror and speak to myself, is that I've learned to say no, thank you, or I don't have the time for this, I can't. So I was grabbing really everything that was proposed to me, and one way or another, with a lot of emotional costs, I was delivering, and that's not good at all. I'm prepared now to stop things that are not functioning, but I didn't experience this yet, or not that I remember.
I pulled out of a documentary co-production at some stage.
Yeah.
But I have a question which is somehow connected. So, because I would be curious, like you're picking up the project and your determination that you want to do only films which interest you, after a while creates the new way of Romanian cinema. And I'm in my position, I meet the young producers who always struggle how to be able to do films only which I would like to make and still be able to make. You know, you don't have to problem now to, you know, to get the money for even very, very artistic films.
Wrong.
Okay. Then you can refer to this, but I would like to ask about this beginnings, like how to get to the point that your chose project become the image of the national cinema, let's say. Is it clear, or you?
I didn't get the last part.
No, so I would be okay. Very simple. How was the beginning of your career that you started to pick the project which you like, which affect the cinema in whole country in the way, you know?
First of all, I don't want to put on my shoulders merits that are not mine. I was growing along with some filmmakers and some production companies that maybe together we built the new Romanian cinema. I wasn't the lead or the main one in building this, but how it started for me, it was like I was starting with short films, traveling a lot in festivals with them, building a relation with the directors, and so here I was clever enough, or not having the courage to push it further, to start small and to try and to see. When I started my company, that's what we did. Our first productions were short films, and we were not aiming to do something bigger. Meanwhile, as a survival tool, we had advertising, and we worked in advertising and some production services. And I grew along with the directors of these shorts. One of the very first films was The Tube with a Hat, which is a classic of the Romanian cinema, and it's the first successful film of Radu Jude. And since then, we worked everything together. The other short film, it's actually a medium length, it's Marilena from P7, the film of Cristian Nemescu, that he did somehow as a preparation for California Dreaming, which is another important stick of the Romanian new cinema. And then, yeah, I was trying with short films and then going into the feature lengths. And this is also basically, I'm trying to continue with this with the new talents. With Ivana was different because we managed to get in our first collaboration already in a feature length, but still I was following her before I saw her before, because it might happen that we don't fit. It might happen that it is a beautiful project. It is a talented and interesting filmmaker, but we don't have the chemistry, and we need to test that. So this is one thing that I think it should start small with the freedom of not having huge budgets and responsibilities towards the money, or spending too much time into financing. I'm trying to stay alive even in this respect, and don't have big budgets, and to from time to time to do a low budget film, especially in order to exercise the ability of doing it with limited means. I'm not a rich person anyways, and I won't be out of the kind of cinema that I'm doing. I mean, my pockets are so full of glory that it doesn't fit a coin in. But I'm fine. I mean, I cannot complain. I'm living the life that I want to live at the standards that I'm demanding, and I cannot complain. And I have the freedom. And sometimes this is something that it's much more precious than the money, at least in my perspective.
And you get funding for everything you wanted. I understand.
And I'm not getting funding for everything I want. We have now a film that I hope it will start its international life beginning of next year somehow, called One Step Behind the Seraphim. It's a debut feature. We worked 10 years on this film. Really, literally 10 years, since in 2007 the director came into my office with a kind of literary script of the story, and I immediately fell in love with the story. And we applied to the Romanian Film Fund, I think, for 5 rounds until we got support. It was rejected. Very good script, amazing script, but it was first under the line. Always first under the line. And this image that the one that had one success, success is something so ephemeral. It is today, and tomorrow it's the next one. It lasts very, very, very little. So for me, the joy is the making of these films, the whole experience that I'm passing through, the pleasure of meeting the audience and seeing them applaud by or with a good reactions from the audience. But the real success and the awards, and so people are forgetting. I mean, there are so many events and so many things going on. People are forgetting so quickly. And actually, we live in a bubble that we think that we are important, but we are not. We are just for our very, very, very little circle of acquaintances. Otherwise, when I got into the hospital with my mother, none of the 15 doctors that we've seen in there, none of them had a clue of my Golden Bear, Silver Bear, 15 films, box office record in Romania. Nobody. The charm of my mother was much more powerful than my public image or whatever, 3,000 likes on I don't know which post on Facebook, or 10 being among the 10 glorious Romanians, or whatever these kind of TV shows are. So, no.
That's why we have to screen Romanian films in hospitals.
That's why, yeah.
That's the next project. But and maybe you say a few words about the Seraphims, because it's a debut film of a young director about his own experience making high school in a priest's seminar.
Yeah, that's an autobiographical film, and this was a complicated journey, not only because it was hard to finance it, but sometimes with the fiction that are based on personal experiences, it's very complicated to get the distance. And elements that are important in his own emotional life and his own emotional construction are not as interesting for the audience or for the people that didn't live through that moment. But it's very, very hard to let go of these elements, and this was also a long process to see what's important for the film as opposed to what's important for him and his personal experience. And here, even if it is this kind of reality-based film, his approach, it's different from the usual realism of the Romanian cinema, and he wanted to do an kind of American mainstream film in the classic American film, and he managed.
Yeah, with a bunch of young people, in a high school, but under this control of the church that is trying to get them, not to smoke, not to drink, and a lot of corruption around.
Yeah, so you have the social statement and the political statement about the society and the institutions and the church, but in the same time you have a lot about these boys and they are coming to age, and the fact that these future priests are in fact just regular teenagers with dramas, with first love, with friendships, betrayals, games of power. I think it's a very, very special, different kind of product.
And it's very good, in fact, to compare it with The Soldiers, because it has a documentary basis, but since the director Daniel Sandu wanted to do, as you say, let's say mainstream, exciting young guy's novel, the result is totally different, and he totally resisted whatever real contemporary life could go in the film, because this would spoil the whole construction in a way.
Yeah, his vision, the way he wants to make cinema.
But just a second, at the end of the film, he has a 2-minute video excerpt fragment that was shot in the seminar where he went, actual footage, home footage, let's say, from the 90s, which is one of the scenes that is reconstructed in the film. So there is at the end, you're like, okay, so everything is documented There is a rapport there, a relationship.
Yeah, indeed. And this is the kind of film, for instance, that we released the film in Romania. We did something. Yeah, maybe we will speak a little bit about distribution and how am I playing on this side when the films are ready. And the film, it's really a success in Romania, and it's interesting to see that the film critics are criticizing the fact that, yeah, it's audience orientated and it's so obvious that it goes. But in the same time, for instance, the theater critics are praising the film and saying, wow, that's such an interesting film, and that's such a powerful film, and the statement, but the content and the audience way of putting it, and it's very interesting to see this as well.
We have to say that film criticism in Romania died some years ago, so there's no place for that seriously. But yeah, there's people who write chronicles from time to time. If you don't have questions, I would like to go back to the soldiers and to the experience of filming in the ghetto, and the fact that you were allowed to film in the ghetto, but you weren't allowed to film in the priest seminar, which makes a difference also.
Yeah, this is also interesting because we were refused by the seminaries constantly, and even by some other colleges when we said what's the subject of the film, because we don't. I mean, I don't want to lie, and I don't want to have this kind of surprises. I want to continue to make films and to be regarded as an honest person. So I was not going to tell them that I'm doing an American series while doing this kind of film. So even some like colleges said, well, no, better this subject better no. While in the ghetto, we weren't really welcome, neither in the ghetto. But and there the thing is, I know you people with camera, journalists and filmmakers, and so you are making money out of our poverty, so you have to pay for it. And then it was a long process, and here we had a lot of support from our local fixer, Madalina, who is actually a social worker in the neighborhood, and also we got support from kind of leaders of the ghetto, because there is a hierarchy over there as well. And the moment that we had the benediction from the head for the uncrowned head of the community, and then the social worker that is approving their social aid allowance, then we were allowed, but not necessarily welcome there as well. I mean,
we have to get you an image. It's a place where taxi drivers don't want to go. If you go on a taxi and you tell them the address, they say, okay, not there.
It's a lot of drug addicts. It's very dirty.
But it's also bizarre because half of the street is like this, and then the rest of the street is
like
working
any other
class
neighborhood,
or working class people, having kids there. And
but and there is also again the prejudgments. I mean, Ferentar, no way. Have you ever been there? No. But no. There, I'm not going.
And this was in the crew also, in the team.
Yeah, this we had this problem with a crew as well. Like, oh yeah, well, but we have to have bodyguards, and so why do you have to have bodyguards? I mean, what do you think it will happen? I mean, the worst that happened was that we had a wedding scene in the film, and we put a red carpet from one of the apartment buildings, and somehow all of the sudden they stolen the carpet. And we asked, where is the carpet and what's going on, and da-da-da-dum. And they said, well, we have it. We can sell it to you. Okay, we need it. We bought it. But that was the worst that happened. I mean, no equipment, no aggression, nothing else. And everything was really under control. Sometimes they became a little bit aggressive when we asked them, no, you know, we are shooting over there. Can you put the music lower or something? But this would have happened in any neighborhood when you have a nasty person and you ask them to do a favor. So who are you and why should I do this for you? It's nothing so peculiar.
Can you perhaps tell about the distribution, how you work with the distributors?
Yeah, this process, it's starting basically the minute that you have a project and you are decided to go along with it. This I learned very early, that networking is the key. I think that you can't get out of the crowd anymore nowadays. There are so many wonderful projects, so many wonderful films created, more and more, and the growth, it's exponential, and so it's impossible to be visible, and you have to use all the tools and stay alive and interfere. So that's why I think that you should start being in this kind of workshops or project presentations and submit and try to be selected there and go and follow the project. That's a key element from the very beginning, not only when the film is ready, because now I know it's not fair, but in the same time I can understand festival selector that is receiving, like in Sundance, for instance, 11,000 submissions, that they are not looking at all of them with the same care. They are just passing. Maybe you are lucky and their eyes after a good sleep are falling on your film and they stay 100% concentrated on your, but that's luck. So I think you should be present and to start from there, the journey and the relations, and keep people informed. We are there, we achieved this, we have that, we shoot this nice moment, and carry on with that. That's what I'm doing with festivals as well as with sales agents and possible distributors. I keep them informed. I keep telling them where we are and what we are, without stealing too much of their time, because they don't have the time only for me. They are curious. They are requesting meetings here and then. I prefer to have a quiet dinner or coffee with the people than to go to crowded parties where the music is bad and loud and you only can say, hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Fine, thank you. Bye. Next. And just exchange ideas and stuff. But we keep submitting regularly also to the festivals, and the festivals that we think are suited for the projects. We are not splitting ourselves anymore in all over the place, even though it is such a lottery. And you can never know, and I can never predict which festival will fall in love with which of my films, if any. So the only achievement that I have out of this lucky events of my career is that a good bunch of people are looking more carefully or are taking a little bit of time to watch what I have to offer. More than this, it's no guarantee. And I've been rejected big time after winning the very next year after the Golden Bear with a very nice letter and very carefully but rejected with a film that I was betting that it has its place in Berlinale, for instance. So there is no. It's not that you get what you want from a certain point. You have to redefine and then build yourself again and again with every single project and path that you retake.
But maybe you give them shortly the story of the distribution for Soldier and what happened and who picked it up and what's going on, because the film is really fresh. It wasn't premiered yet in cinemas.
Yeah, the film it's heavily traveling in festivals nowadays, and in the beginning we had from the script stage the film was presented as a project in Cinelink in Sarajevo, and it was very well received over there. Then the moment it was ready, and then the moment that we were putting together the international finance of the film, we approached one agent that we've met in Cinelink and asked, would you like to follow this project? I think it's on your profile, and would you like to read it? And they said yes, but we don't completely commit. We are not putting an MG at this stage, and but yes, definitely we give you a letter of interest just to complete your financing and to apply to Eurimage, and definitely we want to have the right to be the first to see the film. Okay. So we finished the film. We started to apply to festivals, and of course we sent primarily to this sales agent. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, no reply. So, is it? Have you seen it? Did you have the time to? Because we are submitting the film and we want to know what you think. And well, Ada, the film, I think it's very daring. It's very good, but it's not a typical LGBT film. This will never ever please our LGBT audience. Because you don't have two beautiful leads. Yeah, but it's yes, you are right. It's a very tender story. It's a very strong film. It's very surprising. It has everything. It's a very special film. But no, I'm sorry. I'm afraid it's not for us unless you go in Cannes. Okay. We need to, yeah, okay. So but then it was shortlisted in Cannes. It didn't manage. Then it was invited to San Sebastian and Toronto, and then quite a bunch of sales agents came to us and putting offers on the table, and they were really so excited about the film. Finally, it was one that was very interesting, and really I was convinced that it will go. It was a new possible partner, but finally we decided to go with Beta, even if the film wasn't precisely their profile, but what they proposed and the history that we have with them and their presence on the market, I think it was the best trigger of the film. Now things are going very well, festival-wise, sales-wise. We do have some discussions, nothing that is really, but it was really surprising that after this quite brutal refusal, then we got 4 offers with MGs that I didn't expect at all for this tiny film. And a very strong partner that wasn't at all the partner that we thought for this film, because it's not at all their profile, their kind of story. Yeah, that's it.
On this very optimist note, I think we can wrap it, and I can applaud my wife once more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.